If your anger feels louder at 50, it may not mean you're becoming bitter or difficult. It may mean that your body, your boundaries, and the truth you've swallowed all these years are speaking at the same time. And before this video ends, I'm going to show you the 3 things your anger is asking you to change. Let's start with what's real, because this isn't just you're getting sensitive with age. Something is actually shifting on more than one level. One level, obvious, is hormones. Declining estrogen affects the brain's ability to buffer stress. Estrogen plays a role in regulating serotonin, and the systems that help you stay level when it drops, that buffer thins out, and irritation surfaces faster. It stays longer. You're not imagining a shorter fuse. There's a physiological reason the fuse got shorter. Then there's the social aspect. Think about what anger's job was for the last 20, 30 years. If you were raising kids, working at a job, married, anger had to stay out of the way. It couldn't be indulged, and so it had to be redirected into something functional. Get through the school pickup, get through the meeting, get through the argument without being difficult. Anger didn't disappear. It had a job, and the job was staying quiet so everything could keep running. Am I right? At 50, for a lot of women, these jobs start to loosen. Kids need you less. Some marriages change or end. And jobs, well, sometimes they get reassessed. And the roles that gave anger a job start disappearing. But that doesn't mean the anger disappears. It's still there. It just doesn't have any place to go except out. And third, it's all cumulative. This maybe is the most important piece. This isn't new showing up out of nowhere. This is backlogged anger, decades of it, with the lid finally coming off. It's not that you have more to be angry about, it's just you have less holding it down. Here's the script most of us got handed, whether it was said out loud or not. A good woman is pleasant, accommodating, easy to live with, easy to be around. And so for decades, a lot of us got really good at looking calm. But here's the distinction we're sitting with. You weren't calm, you were quiet. Those aren't the same thing. Calm means the feeling isn't there. Quiet means the feeling is there, you're just not showing it. And that comes at a cost. Every time you swallowed a reaction to keep the peace, keep the job, keep the relationship, that wasn't nothing. This is the part I want to get very specific, because vague anger is scary, but anger with a clear target, now that's information. Anger is being overlooked at work. It's putting 20, 30 years in, and suddenly you're talked over or passed over for promotion. You may even be phased to the door with somebody with not even a quarter of your experience put before you. This anger isn't bitterness. It's an accurate read of what's happening to you. Anger for carrying invisible loads without acknowledgement. You're the one that remembers the anniversaries, gets dinner ready on time, scheduling appointments, knowing where everything is, managing other people's emotions. This doesn't show up on anyone's radar until it stops. A lot of women only know what they've been carrying once they get angry. And then they realize that nobody else noticed either. There's anger at relationships where the accommodation was only one way, where you were the one who adjusted, apologized first, just so you could keep the peace. No one else was apologizing. There's anger at time lost performing a version of yourself that never existed. Years spent being palatable, pleasant instead of real. That's not a small loss. That's time you don't get back, and it's fair to be angry about it. None of this is a character flaw showing up late in life. It's diagnostic. Anger, in almost every one of these cases, is just pointing at something real that was already there. It's just finally loud enough to be heard. There are two ways these tend to go wrong, and I want to name both of them. They may look opposite, but they cause the same type of damage. The first is suppressing it again, telling yourself, I shouldn't feel this way. Pushing it back down, going back to being quiet. This is the most familiar move because this is the one you've been practicing for 30 years. But it's the same pattern, the same cost. The second is letting it curdle into bitterness with no direction. Anger without a target or direction becomes something else entirely. It stops being information and starts being a mood you live inside of. That's not liberation either. That's just anger with nowhere to go, which is exactly the trap we started with, only expressed differently. The honest middle ground? Anger is a diagnostic tool, not an identity. It's telling you something is overdue. Your job isn't to live inside it or bury it. It's to figure out what it's pointing to. You can't journal it away. You can't practice gratitude until it. Here's the more honest version. When anger shows up at 50 with intensity, it's usually pointing at one of three things. It could be a boundary that's overdue, something that you've been allowing that you no longer want to allow. The anger is the signal that the boundary should have been established a long time ago. It could be a conversation that's overdue, a conversation that you should have had with a partner, a child, a boss, a friend. The anger is what's left when honesty got postponed too many times. And it could be a role that needs to end. Could be a job, a friendship, a partnership, a version of yourself that's run its course. Anger at 50 isn't a malfunction. In most cases, it's clarity that just took a while to show up. You're not becoming an angrier woman. You're a woman who's no longer willing to pay anger silence tax. That's the one you've been paying quietly for years so everybody could stay comfortable. That's not a decline. That's the bill finally getting paid off. Let me hear in the comments below what you're angry about. It could help a lot of us. If you could, please subscribe, and thanks for the chat.